up. Oh, there we are. I think we're streaming now. It says still loading. Oh, yep, there we are. Okay, cool. And we'll just wait for some people to file in before we get started.
Hurry up, come on. First 3 rows get soaking wet.
I'm going to drop this in my Discord, see if there's anyone around.
Wow, that means just now realizing that the actress that plays Sylvie is also the same actress from Doctor Who.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That makes wait, who was she in Doctor Who?
She was the Doctor.
Oh.
No.
Was she?
What
Maybe
Ian
I'm
just
reading
said-
this wrong.
No.
Am I reading this wrong?
Yeah.
Was she the Doctor? She was?
They had a lady doctor.
But that's Jodie Whittaker.
Yeah.
Oh, see, okay. Close one. Thought I was getting ready to mix my white people up. All right.
Ian was like, Doctor Who?
Crisis averted. Because I'm like, why have I not seen, pictures of side-by-sides all on the timeline? This is huge. Have I cracked the code? And I didn't crack shit.
I love that. I love when I'm like, I figured it out. No.
I love whenever an actor finds like a show theme that's for them. Like apparently Sophia DiMartino loves time travel. So
Yes.
see you in Back to the Future 4.
Wait, so who was she? Who was she in Doctor Who?
She was no one. This article is saying that they look the same. So So actually it's the article's fault for making me think that I didn't.
We're running out of content. We are running out of content.
It's so random.
Did it have a
why
bad
is this in the
headline?
recap? No, the headline is Loki recap.
Sometimes they have bad headlines and you're like, ooh, this is interesting, and then it's nothing.
I mean, it is curious that the actresses are both British. I wonder if that was, a nod to Doctor Who.
Possibly.
We included British people in our time travel story in a nod to Doctor Who fans will recognize.
Listen, as I feel like most of you probably will agree, I try never, when people get mad at a headline, I try to remember, but that writer very much probably did not write the headline. Like
there are several headlines that I didn't write, and I looked at them like, why would you put that? Because this is not what this article is
sometimes
about.
the like upper level people at some websites just log on in the middle of the night and change all the headlines because they're in a mood. And that's just something that you as someone with a byline have to deal with.
Also, if a headline got you mad and you clicked it, I hate to break it to you, it worked.
Yeah.
That's the point.
I can
take all of this. I understand.
There's one place I wrote for that is not the place we worked at together, Ryan, but they changed the headline and it was very bad, and like 3 people DM'd me mad about it, and I was just like, I didn't do the headline. Like I don't know what to say. Like it just wasn't mine. I got paid, but like
you're running customer service now.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at headlines, so I'd be glad that somebody wrote my headline.
I am also bad.
I always think I'm bad at headlines, and then I'll be like, what if we just did this? And everyone's like, that's great. And I'm like, when I try, it's terrible. And when I just say stuff, it works.
Ian, I feel like that's you.
Yeah, I'm bad at titles in general. I feel like
better with the podcast, but some of your other stuff, you're like, what do I call this? I'm like, why are you asking me?
Which is, Matthew and I used to have a title like that wasn't the Buffy episode for every Buffy episode. And then I just dropped that because I was like, people want to know what episode it is. Let me just say what episode we're covering, and that makes it easier. So that's been better with the podcast. Like I don't need to name sometimes I'll give it like a cute name with saying what it is, but for the most part, I'm just like, this is us talking Loki, I noticed most other podcasts do that too. And it just makes it easier to like sift through shit.
I remember way before there was like, you could manage all your podcast titles at once with AI or whatever shit. Because we're talking like the early internet days of 2014. But no, for real, like not that long ago. And we had to change the title of every single podcast because in our new contract, we had to put the guest name first. and then the title and the episode number. So I had to go through by hand because like, who cares if we call it like monkey poopy butthole or whatever? Like nobody's gonna care. But what they care about is that like Billy Eichner was on it. So I had to go through by hand and I like do hundreds of them. And then it was like 2 years later that they came out with some software that was like, it auto does all. And I'm like, motherfucker. I should have invented the software, but
that's not. Actually, that should have been your villain origin story.
I am going to become the Loki.
I was actually just looking for an old article I wrote for BuzzFeed actually, and I realized that I guess a lot of them, they didn't update the like background stuff. So a lot of them, the images are just big X's. And I was like, man, so I was going to rip some images I took for a post. But like now they're just big X's. And I was like, crap.
Yeah, we're doing the like Gawker relaunch at work, slowly but surely. Have faith in Leah Finnegan. But when we go through the old Gawker archives, I mean, you have no idea who you're talking about. It's just all text. Like all the art is gone, all the contextual pictures are gone. It's like, look at this dummy. And it's like a big X. I'm like, can we get someone or like a computer to go through and put something here?
So wait, you do have to go like from the old stuff? You have to like reformat it?
I mean, I think that we should, but I don't know if we're going to.
Fair. I mean, I guess like,
and we don't own the artwork, for example. Like that was licensed for a different company. So
right.
Yeah.
I'm like, does my Sailor Moon GeoCities page still have all the Sailor Moon images I ripped from the internet, or no? Because it did for a long time.
Yeah, I remember getting copyright claims on my Facebook background wall and being like, I'm advertising for you. Like, speaking of backgrounds, which will get us copyright claimed.
Yeah.
When I first saw that, I was pretty sure those were like very large wooden sculptures on you. I was like, they kind of look like the Time Lord.
No, I did this by hand just for
at
this
least
podcast.
like 15 seconds, which is a long time. Long time.
You're such a good woodworker. That's amazing. Thank you for doing that for the show. Yeah.
I actually brought a guest star with me.
Yeah.
He won't be talking.
Seems cool.
All right, well, I guess we'll get started. So we're here to talk about Loki. We're going to recap Loki. I decided not to do a full podcast episode. I figured YouTube Live would be nice, and I have the stellar lineup of folks to come talk Loki. Ryan, you and I took Ryan. We have two Ryans here, but so
like which one?
The guests we have today are Ryan Broderick, who is forever my king of the internet.
Hello.
Ryan Houlihan, my sweet angel baby, who helps with so much fucking stuff with the podcast.
Hello.
Stephanie Williams, who is one of my favorites, who is a not newly minted co-host, so I guess kind of new, but not that new. Who has a Nubia comic coming out very soon, right?
Yes, October 5th. Also July 27th. But yes, hello.
Oh, right, yes. And my BFF, Kimberly Ann Southwick. I guess we'll do like first impressions first. Ryan Broderick, what did you think of Loki as a whole?
The show as a whole, okay. I think it was more fulfilling than WandaVision, and obviously better than Falcon and whatever. Like, but it does suffer from the same problems as WandaVision, which is that it is a trailer for upcoming movies, and they made us sit through basically an origin story for a villain that they're going to reintroduce in Ant-Man 3 or whatever. But the sexual tension between the two Lokis alone, I think, was worth it because it was palpable. It was unbelievable. So I would give it like a solid B+, A-.
All right, Stephanie, what'd you think?
So surprisingly, I was a little down on the series, not because it wasn't well put together or wasn't good. It was just required a little bit more, more heavy lifting on my end because it was so exposition heavy at sometimes, which is okay. I was all right with that. But that finale really blew me away. So it helped make up for some of the little middle parts where I got a little lost. But as far as where it ranks, WandaVision is still first for me. Loki would be second, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier is like 15. So whenever we get to that, But I really love the themes that it played with as far as like free will and what that means and does it even really exist? And also with Loki. Imagine coming from therapy after unpacking so much stuff and getting to know yourself, and you meet that new person, that new self that you've discovered, you kiss it, and then it's just like, fuck you, and it sends you back. That is terrible. But yeah, no, I would give the overall series a B.
All right. Ryan Houlihan.
I I liked it. I had a lot of fun while we were there. It's no WandaVision, but I think that there's somewhere between 6 episodes and 22 episodes in a reunion in the television pantheon that this could have better fit, because we didn't spend enough time in the procedural or like the day-to-day, like in my shows, I need somewhere that we're returning to, right? Like it doesn't have to be Central Perk, but I have to know what the difference and what the stories of this episode are, because a lot of streaming shows right now don't have single episode arcs and then an overarching season arc. They have a season arc that they come up with arbitrary breakpoints for and throw some extra twists in so that you have to tune in. But I think it would feel more like its own show and less like a prequel to a bunch of movies that I'll have to buy for a premium on Disney Plus if we had a few more adventures with Sylvie and Loki and we learned a little bit more about them. And I'm not saying everything has to be Buffy, but I think a little bit of Buffy in your Marvel isn't a bad thing, I would say. So I will give the show a B. I will give the entire cast an A+ because they carried this thing on their digital CGI backs. But I will give it a B.
Kim.
Oh, I was like obsessed with this show.
Yeah, I actually like. I want to hear you because I know that like so.
Like I don't know why, but for some reason, like that the first 2 and then the third, which is the episode I was on for on the podcast, I was like, yeah, like I'm into this. And then I was like, wait, there's only 3 left. And I think I was let down because of that. But I do see the like I really like I wanted them to go back to the TVA. Like yeah, I like your point that they're not going back to places. And I loved parts of the finale, like that villain introduction, like as much as it is that trailer preview, right? Like as much as it is that, it's also like damn, that villain, like that I could have sat there and watched him like act for longer.
Yeah. Again, not to bring it back to Buffy, but this amazing villain like that, to only drop it in the last episode, like that would be like if we got 1 episode of Glory. It's like, no. Yeah. I want a full season where we see this bitch do some shit.
And I actually was curious because Kim, this was your first thing you watched as like live, right? All the other shows you had like binged or like you spent most of quarantine going through Marvel stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is like I'm coming on my a little bit over a year anniversary of spending a whole hell of a lot of time with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I watched WandaVision like right after everyone else finished. And then I did not watch Falcon and Winter Soldier. So
I told her she didn't have to.
I liked your joke that it was number 15 because yeah.
Any YouTuber summing up the events to you will be funnier and probably have better production value than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Well, no offense to the cast and crew who worked very hard.
Both Ryans here, both of you did the like 24-hour or longer Marvel like marathon, right?
I've done it twice now. Yeah,
I've done it once because I'm not insane.
I did it for Civil War, and then I did it again for Infinity War.
Oh wow!
And that was too much.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the cool things about watching something like this in live time is like it makes you want to go back, right? Like it makes me like there are things that I'm like, ooh, like I saw that the word Thanos was written on a helicopter, and I was like, I know who that is. You know? So it makes me excited about like Marvel stuff. But I mean, WandaVision is just epic, and Falcon and Winter Soldier was exactly. But this was second. WandaVision is like just a TV about TV that talks about other things in a really good way too. And Loki he's such a good villain, and they could have done so much more with him. And I like what they did do, but I needed more, and they didn't give me more. So I would say B, like a high B+. I'm a professor, so like 88.
Yeah,
Not like an 87, maybe 88.5, but yeah.
this very specific rating.
Sorry.
I love that you're like, for extra credit in season 2, I need you to do callbacks too.
I think.
I wonder if I'm sorry, Ian, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I was gonna say real quick, like, I wonder if we would have known going into it that it was going to be a season 2. Because if there's a season 2, then you're not really putting too much pressure on them to like tie up this
Everything
in or to like grow this character in that way. So I just thought it was I didn't know that was the end credit scene. So because I told you all, like, I started skipping those.
Yes.
Because it's like whatever I read about it on the internet. And then I read it and I was like, wait, that's the end credit? Like just a little notebook with that written out. I was like, all right.
So do we know when season 2 drops? Because I feel like that matters with like TV.
Well, we talked about this in the finale episode. That's the fucking thing, is like, it's not like, this isn't even like a regular season of a TV show where like, oh, when the seasons start up again is when it could be 2025 before we get season 2 at this point. And like, don't make me fucking wait with a cliffhanger till then. Like,
and what's worse is it was just announced that Kate Herron is not coming back for season 2. The director
seems weird.
That's not a good sign to me.
I think she is doing stuff with the MCU. I'm pretty sure. I think I had read that, but I don't think she's doing the second Loki.
That's not a good sign to me, because it shows Disney's cards, which is that like the real thing is the movies, and that's not what I love television because I love creators who take television as seriously as they would take anything else, right? Like I think. Like some of the Marvel, like Jessica Jones to me is better than some of the worst Marvel movies. And it's because the person sat down and was like, I want to tell a very good story. And so anytime that a creator is being pulled away for something else, I'm a little bit like, it's kind of, I don't know. It makes me feel like that this isn't the biggest story that they want to tell, which then it's like, then why did I come? You're asking for 6 hours of my time and it's not the big story. But I'm excited for a season 2, and it doesn't mean that someone else can't do a great job with it and that it won't be their top priority. But
I mean, that's a good point though, because like these 3 shows have basically set up. One of them sets up Doctor Strange. The other one sets up the Dark Avengers or whatever Val is doing, and then the other and the new Captain America, and then the other one. This one sets up the new villain. But all of that will be done again in movies. Like there is really, and it's unfortunate because like the comics kind of work this way too, where like you can just not read a whole bunch of comics and come in for the crossover and it'll make sense. So I don't know how you fix that, or if they even want to fix it. I think they like that, to be honest.
If anything, I would rather them go whole hog and be like, you can't miss a thing. Sorry, it's all essential. Because then at least I would know what I'm doing is worth my time. And it is obviously worth my time because WandaVision and Loki were great shows, right? But I watched all of or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, not Captain America, because I thought, well, there'll be something essential here. And I got to the end and I was like, okay, so I could have literally just gotten like a tweet and that would have been good.
I mean, could have watched a compilation of Julia Louis-Dreyfus scenes and been fine.
We're not even at Armor Wars yet. I mean, the War Machine stands are going to make fan cams like who is dying for Armor Wars. Although it could be cool if Justin Hammer shows up, I'd be excited. But like,
I mean, well, we have Armor Wars and Secret Invasion, which like those feel like big deals.
And I forgot about Secret Invasion for a second until like I think I had to report the news, and I was like, oh shit, this is still happening.
Yeah, we got a lot of storylines up in the air.
I forget about Skrulls almost constantly. Like I am incepted out of the knowledge of Skrulls constantly.
I only remember that the Reeds turned them into cows, and somewhere like somebody ate them for a barbecue, or you got Skrull milk going on. This is a real. So the first time the Skrulls are introduced in the comics, as their punishment when the Fantastic Four discover who they really are, is to turn them into cows. And they leave them in a pasture in some random town.
Oh my God.
They come back to it, but yeah. So somebody was getting Skrull milk.
The worst thing we've seen on these shows was when Wanda made Agatha a nosy neighbor. Not a cow.
But the idea of milking a Skrull is horrible. Yeah. And I would like to see it, I think.
I will send you that. I think I tweeted about it. But
do you think they would sell that at Disney's like Marvel Adventures campus?
I would sell
blue
it.
milk or whatever. whatever.
I mean,
Star Wars
do
is.
they sell the blue milk at the Star Wars thing?
Yes, they
must,
do,
right?
and it is fucking delicious. They really have a good recipe going there because I drank like 3 or 4, but they were also alcoholic. So.
And you milk the alien to get it, like you do the whole.
They have a whole little setup. You don't actually
Do they?
milk anything,
Okay,
but it is like a device, and you get it in a special glass.
Okay,
I want them
as
to
long
do
as-
that, but with like a scroll, and they're just milking.
I would like that as well. I think that would be cool.
Well,
I want to know how kablooey gum tastes to bring it back.
Oh yeah.
True.
What was it that he was drinking? I forget.
Oh, it's like it's not Fruitopia, but it's like that, right? It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember I
lunch
didn't
was
know that it was a
dismal.
real thing. Like it was something I didn't know that was real.
Josta soda.
Gasta.
So
Oh,
okay, wait. I was in a conversation with somebody, and they were like, it was back during the like maybe Mobius is a Loki variant nonsense, and I was like, no. And I came up with like a whole backstory for this character, and I want to hear what you guys think his deal was, because I'm convinced he was like a used car salesman from like the Fort Lauderdale area in the 90s, like, or like worked at like a Radio Shack. I'm thinking he's like a Radio Shack manager from like 1995, and he's just like a chill dude who's saving up money to buy a jet ski. That's my backstory for Mobius.
See, for me, it was Boost Mobile, but very similar.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I was thinking he sold pencils or paper or something like that, but
Yeah.
that type of
He's like going to Dave Matthews Band on his vacation days. He's saving up for like aquatic toys to play with. He's that guy.
Watching
Just
a
learn how
lot
to
of-
swim.
Yeah.
He's watching a lot of
aquatic.
Impractical Jokers, and he's quoting it to people.
Well, I think he'd be like he's like kind of lame, but still kind of nice straight guy where it's like,
Yeah.
you can hang out with him. Like,
He seems like a dad.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
get a lot of dad vibes off of him, or like
No, fun
an
uncle.
uncle
He-
even.
yeah, he has not learned the lessons that dads are forced to learn. He's the uncle who's just like, I got wakeboards or whatever.
Yeah, he has like a big
Yeah.
timeshare energy.
Yeah.
He's
Oh
like,
my
if
God,
we all go
yes.
in on it, we can visit it like separately throughout the year. It's a perfect deal. Like he's that guy.
You can't afford not
ruining the
to.
family
Exactly.
vacation. I have an uncle like that who did that too.
That's
We
the
got
uncle I want to
ambushed.
be.
It's like
No, you don't. You have a niece.
he's got a
25
he's got a
years later
section
who
of his
still wants payback.
he's got a section of his kitchen that's just like stuff from Arizona. Like hot sauces, margarita mixes. He's that guy.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
Mobius, and this is about the backstory that we needed. Essentially, is what we're trying to tell
Yeah.
Marvel. Like, just give us a little snippet.
He goes on dates and is like, I'm writing a novel. And he's like, "I'm writing a novel.
God, is that me, Kim, though?
No, you're writing a novel for real. Maybe 2, maybe 3.
He's on Tinder, and every once in a while he like comments to somebody, I hate being on Tinder. What's a super like? And you're like, you know what it is. Don't pretend you don't know what it is.
But yeah, Ryan, I feel like that was a pretty good encapsulation of Mobius. Like, definitely like the nice version of whatever, like kind of douchey, but kind of lame, but like very nice and like chill. And like, I do feel like he's like a fun uncle. Like, he would be, I buy my nephew's love because I'm not above it. I buy every time I see new Pokemon cards, I'm getting them for him. I have like a stash in my closet. So I'm like not a Pokemon gay, like very much not. I know what I know just by
Pokemon gay.
existing on the internet. But every time I see those packs at work, I'm like buying them for him. I have a stash of Pokemon in my closet. Then every time I see him, I give him a new set.
Oh,
And my sister-in-law and brother are very much like, he does not need more Pokemon cards. And I'm like, well, I got him
Yeah.
another set.
No such thing. Yeah.
They
Get
are
as many as
cursing
possible.
you right now.
It's better than like Pokemon cards that sing.
I mean, right? I feel like
Like,
in the
they don't
realm
make
of
any noise.
things,
Yeah.
it's like cards are at least better to have a lot of because it's
They've
like
got
you can-
words on them.
I found out that it's not my nephew, but it's my cousin's kid, which I don't know how to do the math on that. I'm not a scientist. But I found out that he loves Sonic the Hedgehog, and I, working as a gaming editor, was like, cha-ching! Like, I just like opened the floodgates and gave him everything he ever wanted. And his parents were like, this is so nice. Thank you so much. You have to tell us if they make noise. Like, you have to tell us if you push its stomach and
Oh
it
my
talks.
God,
Like,
But you know what I mean? I feel like the kid loves that person who's like cool, but not going to bother them too much, but gives them presents. I want to be that person.
But it is kind of fun to think about who these people were before they were in the TVA now. Because when we got to see her be like a school principal, I was like, 100% on a power trip. Whereas I want to know who all of the sort of all of the backstories and how people ended up here, because it's all types of people. And do they keep their personality, or is it a complete reset where like it's who they would have been if they had these experiences? You know what I mean? Or is it like The Good Place, where you're essentially like, you have your personality buried in there no matter the circumstances?
Yeah.
I want to know.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, I did like that she was a high school principal or a school principal, because that did make sense, right?
Yes.
Now I'm thinking how fun it would be if I went back and I did this 24-hour Marvel watch thing, y'all, that I can never do because I have a small baby at home. But how fun it would be if we went back through them and like there was Mobius like walking down the street in some place or something like that, like. And I could see them.
Disney.
I could see them doing that, you know, like
they'll do
people
it.
that we've seen in the halls, we're seeing again.
They could digitally insert him into Captain Marvel. That's probably where he came from, right? Because he was most likely pruned in the 90s. So they could do it. Like they could put him in there.
Listen,
if you're listening,
we've talked about this a few times, but they already changed the ending of WandaVision, just like weirdly the trees and the layout.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure just to match the multiverse.
What?
Yeah, wait, Stephanie, you didn't hear about this?
No.
Okay, Ryan Broderick, I feel like you'll be better explaining this than I am.
Yeah, WandaVision DLC dropped. So a bunch of people noticed a couple weeks ago that like the trees and sort of the general landscape of the cabin shot at the end of WandaVision has changed on Disney Plus. Most likely, this is to mirror how it's going to look when that scene occurs in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. And they've done this a few times where like there's a scene from Civil War that I think appears at the end of Winter Soldier.
Okay.
It's where like Bucky's arm is in the thing.
Oh, isn't it Ant-Man?
I'm sorry, Ant-Man. Yeah. I'm getting my post-credit scenes mixed up. But so most likely what they did was they got to that scene in Multiverse of Madness. It didn't look exactly the same, and they just like tweaked it, which is weird. I don't know why they would not just take the scene, but whatever.
It's fine, because now I'm just thinking of Doctor Strange like bursting through her, like kicking her door in and saying, "Bitch, why do you have the dark code? What are you doing?"
Oh wait, okay. Can we talk about something, because I've seen so much stuff about this on the internet, and like I'm bursting to talk about this. Which is, there's this thing going around that's being like, okay, when Wanda's looking at the Darkhold at the end of WandaVision, that's the moment that Sylvie kills Kang. And I want to make this very clear that it is not, because the moment that Sylvie kills Kang, everything has already now happened.
Right.
It's just like it has to have been forever.
It has been,
right?
So which means that the MCU, as we understand it, has always had Kangs, but they hadn't gotten to the part of the timeline to then go back. But it does mean that we've never had an MCU without Kangs.
Right.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's been bothering me.
I think Kang is a self-insert for Kevin Feige.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
I mean, really, though, in a literal sense, because even in the comics, like Kang does all these things to get Wanda on the path that she's on, so that he could use her or whatever. But yeah, Kang is like a little pup. You know what? Kang is Andy.
Lisa Vanderpump.
No. Well, no. I was gonna say like all of Bravo. Like what is his name? Andy Cohen. Yeah.
Andy Cohen. Yeah.
Yes, he's Andy Cohen.
Kang is RuPaul.
I will say, I do wish we hadn't had. I don't know why they did this. I don't know why they announced Jonathan Majors as Kang like so early. I wish we hadn't gotten an announcement so he could have been a surprise.
Well, surprisingly though, I don't think they were worried about it, because when WandaVision started, people were still surprised that the actress was Monica. And I'm like, well, if they brought her out on the stage to play Monica Rambeau, there aren't many Black characters in this MCU, so I'm not sure how you forgot that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Also, listen.
Well, it's more now, but anyway, it's funny.
They can keep a couple story beats from me and give me a little fun, but it's gonna leak out. And the reality is, I think studies have shown this, actually, like psychological studies have shown that, like, spoilers, if it's a good movie, it can't be spoiled for you, right? Like, if it's fun to watch, knowing something should not ruin it. And if it does ruin it, then you're not doing a movie, you're doing a magic trick.
And I was still surprised by Kang, because like after the Mephisto stuff, I was like, it's gonna be King Loki. And then when it was Kang, I was extremely pumped. So
I was positive Kang. I was like pretty sure we're going to see him, but I thought he was going to be a Loki variant, and that's how we were going to tie it into Loki. I mean, I'm kind of glad it wasn't that, but it is weird. All right, Kim, I'm be curious because did you know? Because I feel like Kim is my best friend, so I can say this. You are not that into keeping up with pop culture things, right? So you didn't know you didn't know Jonathan Majors was cast at all, right?
No, I mean, I did because I listened to your podcast, Ian.
Okay.
And so I had looked up, I remember listening to the first episode and I was like, who is this Kang they're talking about? I probably typed C-A-N-G into the Google, and I looked it up and, listened to the chatter y'all had, but because I'm not so versed, what y'all were saying didn't necessarily make so much sense. But I had our picture of the actor and the name and like a brief little description. So when he did appear, I was like, "Ooh, I know something," and I was pretty excited about that. And then something I noticed they did was they didn't say his name.
No.
And I thought that was really smart, especially because had I not been the person who listened to Ian's podcast and like knew something that maybe I shouldn't have known as someone who doesn't usually know things, I don't think I would have been disappointed, that I didn't know, because it wasn't like, this named person that if you're not a person that's read the comics or, et
Well,
cetera.
that's what I was wondering as like, so like Ryan, Stephanie and I were very much like waiting for Kang. And I was just wondering how like it lands with someone who maybe wasn't looking for that.
He was so good.
He was.
Yeah.
He killed it. And like I said, I could have watched him go for longer than they were there for a long time.
Right.
And he talked for a long time and I was like, keep talking.
Yeah, I think that scene.
He was enrapturing. Is that a word? I'm a poet. It's a word now. So yeah,
Kim,
I felt like I remember thinking like, okay, even if I didn't know who this is, and I barely know who this is, I think I still would have been like, okay, like it doesn't have to be King Loki or Alligator Loki or Mobius or whatever. It didn't have to be someone we'd already seen, which y'all were convinced. So many people were convinced like, okay, it's got to be someone we've already seen. They can't introduce a new character here at this point. So I was surprised because I'd heard so much chatter that it wasn't going to be him at that point, but I thought it landed fine.
Well, so I was convinced it was King Loki because I was like, okay, it makes thematic sense. It's going to be another variant, but also did you know it does line up with, I think, what they were trying to do, which is the Wizard of Oz. So you have Tin Man Loki finds his heart. You have Sylvie wants to go home as Dorothy. You have classic Loki finding his bravery, and you have Mobius finding a brain. And then they find the wizard at the end. And the wizard is just some crazy guy like wearing like drapery, right? And so it does work. But I did watch it with my girlfriend who doesn't watch any Marvels. She's only seen WandaVision, and I think she was a little let down because it is, I think, for outsiders, it's not exactly clear like why this guy matters. Although Jonathan Majors is like amazing in it. I thought he was awesome.
Yeah, definitely it wouldn't have been as good with a different actor. Like if it had been someone less charming, less handsome, like I don't know that I would have enjoyed watching them talk as much. And I think I was expecting Kang, which like he's not Kang, but I was expecting him to be more of a Thanos type. That's why I was like, I don't want to drop in this super serious, boring villain.
He is worse than Thanos.
He's terrifying.
But I mean, like in the realm of,
I get you.
I get what you're saying. It's that a villain at their most effective should not be like, I've murdered. Like they should be like, yeah, I'm 100% serious. This is what I want. This is what I think. And even if they're affected and like dark and evil, like they come off that way. Okay, like Jafar comes off that way, but he also believes what he's doing is correct. You can tell the actor is like, no, I'm doing this. And I think much like the mayor on Buffy or Loki in the movies, to have a fully realized villain is to have a villain that has multiple layers who you can relate to or be charmed by or who has redeeming qualities. And I was nervous we were going to get another big gray monster who's like, blah, blah, blah. And I don't need any purple, like make it green. It's not any different. Right. I didn't want another thick guy to be like, I will destroy the, like, I liked that this guy was like, hey, crazy story. I'm the king of the entire universe. Like that was fun for me. And I think it was fun my husband dips in and out of Marvel stuff, and he watched that episode and he was like, I like him. This is fun.
Well, and it's not about him. I mean, okay, yes, like obviously it's about introducing him to, as we've talked about, but the way that the finale plays out, it's about giving the Lokis the choice. And then it's about them uniting and then ununiting. What's a word? Destroying each other, or one destroying the other. It's about free will and, versus fate. And suddenly like this, you expect this big bad. And he's like, actually, I'm going to leave it up to you. And I thought that was playing with like, who's the real villain here? Like, is it this guy? Is it Sylvie? Is it, insert somebody else here? Like, and I thought the whole series did a really good job playing with who's the real villain here.
And it ends up, it was us at home all along. No, I don't know.
Well, I thought this Kang had like very powerful working from home during COVID energy. Like he was like, hello, I haven't shaved in many days and I don't own anything that doesn't have a waistband. I'm insane now. And like, I thought that was relatable. Also, I do think it does, if you think about it enough, it does give like a certain emotional sort of finale to the Lokis, because they're like, they want freedom. And it's like, oh, you want freedom? Okay. Look at this crazy guy. He has the freedom now. Do you want this? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's fine. It's good. And I also think Kang will be more interesting when he pops up than Thanos, because Thanos was just like a CGI rig, right, that would turn and face the camera sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, I was going to say to your point though, and you expecting it to be like a Thanos level villain. I think it's interesting to bring that up. Another podcast, we were talking about this and how we've kind of been trained to watch Marvel movies up into phase 4, and these shows have kind of reworked that a little bit, because they haven't. I know the argument is that they're still following the Marvel formula, but that's not really actually true, because they got to feed into the bigger movies or the other things, so they are a little bit different. So I don't think it was wrong that you thought that it was going to be like an actual like hulking Thanos type, but no, Kang is compared to Thanos like. Kang makes Thanos look like, I don't know, like the mean old lady at the grocery store who's being a dick to the cashier. That's Thanos.
They did do a good job on the show of setting up those stakes. Like they did very impressively be like, this is much bigger and more complicated than you're going to understand. And like using Infinity Stones as paperweights, stuff like that to signal that like we're at the next level now. That was amazing. And it did feel very much like Kang was like, hi, I'm God. You know what I mean? Like it had the correct energy to impress me. But now I wonder if they'll be able to maintain that, right? Like you need Kang to have multiple storylines and multiple reveals. And we're going to need people to try to outthink each other, sort of like, sometimes you have those dramas that are just about like, we're going to talk and try to out talk each other, like something like a Death Note, or if you've ever seen Line of Duty on the BBC, it's just watching people's wheels turn. That's what Kang is. And that needs to be just as exciting as like the big action scenes, right? I don't want big action scenes from this whole Kang storyline. I would rather it be like psychological mind games, or even just like trying to work out what happened when timeline wise and try to like trace things back. It has to be about cleverness, and I have not seen a Marvel villain whose entire thing was about cleverness yet, so I don't know if they can pull it off, but I'm super hyped.
Well, Ryan, you make a really good point, which is that
Ryan, how much do you love being able to say that?
It's great. Ryan, I love what you're saying. You're the best variant I could have. But Ryan, you are right though, that there is a piece missing here, and it's that we don't have Reed Richards, and having Kang without Reed Richards is going to be really hard. And so like either we do so Kevin Feige has said they're going to speed up like the multi arcs now. So like we won't have a 10-year Infinity Saga. So that means they're either going to like have to start the Fantastic Four faster than their movie, which could happen, or they're going to do Kang without Reed Richards. And if they do that, like there won't be the Death Note playing chess on two towers in their minds thing, which is going to stink, because we don't even have Tony Stark. Like, we don't have a smart person really to try to outthink Kang. I guess maybe Doctor Strange, but like he's not smart. He's kind of like an idiot. Actually.
We need Doctor Doom too.
Yes, we need Doctor Doom immediately. I 100%. I really felt that when I was watching Kang. I was like, we have not done Doctor Doom yet. And like, are we jumping? Like, I want to know what if we're going to jump into that with both feet or if we're skipping over it. Like, how is this going to work? Also, the whole X-Men of it all. Now that we have all these timelines opened, this is kind of what I thought was going to happen at the end of WandaVision, which was like, now we can have, as has been rumored, multiple Peter Parkers. We can have the X-Men all come in at once. We can do a million different things with it.
I think, I don't know if you all will agree. I don't know. Did you all see how like Ryan Reynolds did that like Deadpool reaction video with Korg? And I mean, Taika Waititi is in the new movie he's in, but still, I'm sure they had to have a lot of like emails and conversations about allowing those characters, even in this small promo video, to be together. And I think that's like some kind of a sign, right? Like, I think it's like, oh, they're doing well with like, they're working together with this shit. And I think that's a sign of like, I mean, they keep saying they want to keep Deadpool, but I do think having the multiverse will make it easier to be like, yeah, he still exists there. Okay, if they want to do a silly Portal episode where he like comes through a portal and is there with the Avengers, sure. But I think that's what they're moving forward towards. And like Kirsten White and I actually were texting about the finale, and she said how her husband said, oh, this feels like now Marvel literally can do whatever they want, and they can with the multiverse. And it's a good idea, I think.
Yeah. WandaVision was about stories and about like storytelling, which was satisfying after having watched them tell so many different stories in different genres. And this is very much about like possibilities. And all of the Marvel canon until now has been like, there are no alternate possibilities. This is the timeline in every movie. If it isn't, we will retcon or digitally change it and it will be perfect. And this was an admission that like, we've done that. You've seen us do perfect. Now we're going to try something else, which is just like variety, a diversity of genres, a diversity of storytelling, which is what I've wanted from them from a long time. Like, the great thing about comic books is that everybody gets a book, right? So everybody's can be different coloring, different styles. And Marvel has been very like, we are shooting this with the same process, with the same post-processing, the same really cheap CGI farms being underpaid and exploited. Like, we're going to keep the exact same shit. And I would much rather see Howard the Duck's movie be true to Howard the Duck and not true to he has to appear with Captain America in the next movie. So we have to limit ourselves. I don't want that.
I actually wanted to ask Stephanie, like, do you think that what they're doing is like trying to make what things that we watch more like comic books? And do you think that's possible?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Because funny enough, those who, I mean, like the MCU actually isn't like this funnel into comics. Like, there's still folks that have been watching, you know, they were there for Iron Man 2008 and still haven't picked up a comic, and that's okay. The point is that the way that they exist to me is the same way different books for different characters exist. Like, this is just I just consider this like another run. But actually, I want to say that I think that Loki is this first season is a direct line into What If. People are not really keeping that in mind because it's an animation, but this show is not being treated like the What If comics in like the actual What If comics, where it's just like, I wonder if this thing, like, no, like this shit is actually happening. These are stories that have happened in these other universes that opened up because, or multiverses or whatever, because of Sylvie killing Kang. So I think it's important to watch those because it might be you might get some answers, or it might lead into stuff that's really important.
Yeah, I actually
had animation sometimes.
I hadn't thought about that until like Loki ended, and I was like, oh wait, that means What If might like be legit canon, right? Like, it probably is.
In a multiversal world, everything is canon, and it also tells the fans,
that's the beautiful thing.
It tells the fans like, we're going to do whatever you want us to do. Pick it apart. Whatever your fan theories are, great. Those are also true. Like, we might shoot two versions of the movie. Who cares?
So I have a question too, just generally about like just this idea of the multiverse. I feel like ever since Trump got elected, I've been thinking a lot about like other timelines.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, how did we get stuck in this one? And do you like, when do we think Marvel was like, this is where we're going to go with all of this? Like, did they know that this was going to be something in the cultural consciousness before like they decided to put it there?
So, okay,
Go
right.
ahead, Ryan.
So we're currently leading up to like an event called Secret Wars. That's sort of like the end of this whole deal. And Secret Wars is probably going to be based on a story from like the late 80s, early 90s, where like all the heroes go to another dimension and they fight each other. But it's also probably going to be based on a redone version from 2015, in which all the different multiverses of Marvel collided violently, become one crazy dimension where Doctor Doom is king, and then they have to fight to like save themselves from that world, and sort of it resets everything. So I think that's what they've sort of planted, is like things are gonna get wacky, and then they're gonna like unfuck it all because it's gonna be too confusing by making them fight and kill each other in like 3 or 4 years. And I think it is directly related to Trump. I think they're like, yeah, we got to do this.
I feel like What If has just, I will say, as a kid, I loved What If. I thought I would play What If stories with my toys because I thought it was so cool. Like, ooh, I could have like Phoenix murder half the X-Men, and like,
so the Green Ranger is kissing Batman, and nobody can tell me that that's not happening because it is right here.
Like, I thought that was such a cool idea to be like, ooh, I could do like, I could pretend in this, like, whatever. And like, I would always like basically like take plots of What If because I thought it was so cool. Like, I remember one of my favorites, which isn't even that good, but like, it was like, what if Wolverine had never joined the X-Men? And so in that timeline, Dark Phoenix does kill all the X-Men. And then Alpha Flight has to fight her. And they all die because it's Alpha Flight, except for Wolverine.
Aww.
And he kills her. And like that, I thought was like such a cool like idea that like Jean actually did kill all the X-Men. But like, it's not too far from like the plot of Dark Phoenix, right? She's very much on the verge of murdering all the X-Men. So I don't know. I don't know that it's like coming from recent bad things. Cause like, I think it's just like comics have always liked the idea of like alternate versions of characters, alternate realities. I mean, Steph, you're writing for DC. They very much have always heavily been like, there's this timeline, there's that timeline, there's.
I mean, right now, just with Nubia and the Amazons, and the fact that there's Nubia the Real One, which is the YA novel that came out that is excellent. Y'all should go read that. And then also the Future State stuff. And then being told, actually, no, we're gonna just kind of, none of that's there. Do this. Yeah. So I mean, and that happens in real time. So yeah, I don't know, like for comic book movies, especially since the MCU has been going on as long as it did, like, I'm sorry to tell you, but the things, they're gonna change. And this one thing that isn't going to actually matter to the story. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist, that it's not important to that character in any kind of way, but like, you'll just have to close that run and pick up the new run. Like when, Claremont wasn't writing X-Men anymore and someone else took over. So it's, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I even think that like, I was such an avid X-Men reader until recently. Now I like read mostly trades, but like, you would notice a difference in character just from like issue to issue sometimes. Like,
yeah.
I remember being so excited in the new Avengers run when the Sentry, the Void took over, and Emma Frost, it was like everyone was there, but she was like a main character in that one issue of like going through his mind. And she was not written Emma Frost like at all, and being like real bummed. It's like, oh, she's just like telling him about his mind. There's no like Emma Frostness here, but that's like because it was like an Avengers story and it wasn't like actually, written by the person currently writing Emma Frost. And like, it was just very apparent in that, but like, it's not the writer's fault so much. Like, they're writing the Avengers and having Emma Frost in one issue. Okay, it's going to be a little inconsistent. And that's kind of like.
And let them try things.
Yeah.
But I will say, Ian, 2 things. One, you need to be careful when you say reading trade, because this is a queer pop culture podcast and there are multiple meanings there. 2 is listen, I think that yes, it hits hardest because we've all been like, what would the Hillary timeline be like? We're like, what if we solved climate change by letting Al Gore be the president for 4 years? Like, there's a lot of that goes on in my mind. But I also think it would have been relevant anyway, because Marvel has done such a good job of being like, look at our perfect house of cards. Everything is perfect. Nothing will goop you more than knocking it over, right? Like, nothing goops me more than when Lady Gaga was like, I'm Stephanie and my aunt died. Like, that was a cool twist because she had spent so much time being like, you'll never see me as a regular girl. And then of course we do. And I think it was a way for Marvel to be like, we are always going to be perfect, except when we're not. And then we're bad. And then of course you want to watch more. And then they'll flip that back on its head in its own time. But I think it speaks to the genius that was committing. Like, Marvel and Disney have committed. They have sat down 10, 15 years ago and they were like, okay, see you in 15 years when we're still working on this. And I like that. I like seeing that they're willing to do what ifs and be like, we don't care who this pisses off. Like, we're going to do this version of this character and everyone's going to be like, oh, this is SJW stuff because we hired someone who wasn't a white guy. But we don't care because these are the stories we want to tell. And that's the most you can ask for out of a cold capitalist media monopoly, right? Like, at least do the bit. Commit.
Yeah.
Well,
I also
speaking
think
of committing, though. Oh, so I'm sorry, Ray. What were you
Oh
gonna
no,
say?
I just one last thing with this was I think it also allows them to do the Miles Morales thing, which is like
Mhm.
do an alternate timeline, come up with a new character. Of course, people are going to like it because it's free from all the continuity issues. And then they have to figure out how to get that character over to the main timeline. And like Miles Morales was trapped in Ultimate Universe for like a decade before they could finally free him. And I think this is going to be the same deal. Like they're going to come up with some variation of like, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and people are going to love it. And they're gonna like, oh, well, shit, we have to figure out how to bring him over to the main universe.
But Stephanie, what were you
No,
gonna say?
it's true. No, I was gonna say, I forgot, but it was something about Mobius and Loki, and then the switch to Loki and Sylvie. Consistency, because I foolishly thought that Mobius and Loki were going to be the two, I don't know, like their relationship, that was going to be a thing for me to kind of latch on to, as Loki they're going to go on like these more Pompeii, more going to, what state were they in? I know it was like in the middle of the United States and like a hurricane, like God, like climate change. Yeah, climate change got really bad. So terrible. If there
I
was a
appreciated how
hurricane
bleak
in
that was, though, right?
Wyoming.
Like,
Yeah. That was depressing. But I thought we were going to get a little bit more of that, but I also realized after, well, no, because it was 6 episodes. Would you all have been tired by episode 5 if we were still like visiting different apocalypses
I would've-
like just time
I
travel
would've
period, right?
That's Doctor
I could have
Who.
done
I would have
more.
watched
I could have
all-
done 2 more apocalypses.
I
that
read
had
something on Facebook that I agreed with that I didn't want to agree with that I did want to bring up here. So Kevin Spack, who I went to undergrad with, hi, I'm bringing up your Facebook post. He said, I sure wish that Loki show had been written by people who liked Loki. Seriously, how do you make a 6-episode series about trickster gods in which they perform 0 fun acts of trickery? And while I think they performed a few fun acts of trickery, like, I guess, like, if we would have had less, like, if Loki could have, like, had, like, a moment where he gets serious a little later, like, he didn't have to grow up right away, and we could have more, like, fun Pompeii Yoki. Why do I keep saying Yoki?
Loki.
I'm sorry.
I feel like that's how your daughter would say Loki.
I was in the car for I can't even count, many hours yesterday. But yeah, like, I mean, as much as I really do like the show, that Facebook post like hurt me. I was like, yeah, like he's my favorite villain. Like, I don't know how he's not anyone's favorite villain. So, I mean, I don't feel.
I have seen that critique, and I do kind of like Adam Sass kind of had that critique while we were going through this series of like, Loki became so like immediately like fun, like there was no like fun Loki. It was like he was immediately focused on this mission, and it felt like maybe he wouldn't have been so laser focused on it so quickly. And I do see that critique.
Stuff, the fun, like the TVA is fun, like the Infinity Stones as paperweights are fun, like the bubble gum is fun, like just little stuff like that. I mean, you didn't have to take a long time.
You're
but
doing time travel, planting seeds and foreshadowing, and then reaping those seeds is the fun of the genre.
Yeah.
But guys, there's no time travel in this show.
That's true.
That's the craziest thing. They don't. There's no timey-wiminess. There's no like.
You're right.
This Loki meets himself as an old man. There's no like going back Bill and Ted style to give yourself a key to open the door. There's none of that.
I mean,
it's crazy.
Like they not only not avoid each other, like they fall in love and kiss.
Should
Yeah.
we
You're
have
supposed
a
to avoid yourself,
conversation?
right?
I was just about to say, can we? So wait, before we have that conversation, I want to
Should we
say
have the conversation?
that Mike in the comments did ask what we thought of the TVA, if they were like in this universe, like, do we feel the TVA was necessary or that they were like not?
So are we Sylvie's or Loki's is what he's
right.
asking.
Yeah. I'd be Stephanie, what do you think? I'd be curious your answer.
I mean, I'm happy that they exist now because I know there's a Black-owned business. Which that was hilarious. But no, I like the introduction of the TVA because I think because it's not the TVA isn't the only I guess, bureaucracy in space that's there to kind of fight over time. There are some other ones. Even Kang has his own citadel or whatever, controlling time. And I'm just thinking of the comics. So I like that they introduced them because it's just, hey, it's other weird shit going on in space. This is one of them. But I hate that we didn't spend enough time there for the inner workings of the TVA. Like I thought we were gonna get into like really get into now we know why they're there, but I just a little bit more snooping around, a little bit more uncovering things than we got. Like I was pissed that Lamentus was the last little bit of stressful, not time traveling that we got.
Yeah.
You also never left that building.
Yeah.
I actually kept thinking about that. I was like, so these people like live in the TVA, but the TVA is that whole like world we saw.
Yeah,
like
let me see an apartment.
Is that
Yeah.
fake too?
Like where's Mobius live? Where's he
just
sleep?
like I assumed it was just all similar buildings, like forever.
Yeah.
It was
That's
all
what I was thinking.
timeshares.
Ah.
I like the TVA because I like a villain that is very clearly a bad guy, not the worst guy, but a bad guy. Because I like let's acknowledge the fact that what you're doing is objectively bad. Like you're doing bad things in the world. However, I get why you're doing them, and I much prefer to like it's sort of like not to get so hot takey, but like Joe Biden is president because I'm really glad that that's the guy I'm arguing with now. You know, I'd much rather argue with the TVA than whatever could replace the TVA. However, let's acknowledge that they're not like nice people playing patty cake and walking children in nature. Like,
Yeah.
that is a fair comparison.
I feel like the TVA is very anime. Like to me, there's something like extremely anime about beating like the big bad, and then you're just immediately thrust into like the bigger world. Like this would be like when Digimon beats Devimon, and they're like, "Oh, welcome to like everything else," and it's all fucked. And like that to me is really interesting. And I think Marvel, if they want to keep going, they have to become One Piece. Like that's the only way they can keep this going. So like we need the bureaucracy. We need like Kang, who is essentially just like a Redditor of this universe, like trying to retcon things. Like we need to get meta and weird, and this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
I love that you related it to anime. A thing that I keep going back to though that does bother me a little bit, because I get it, right? We're showing that these institutions, even if it's something like TVA that is trying to keep the timeline, they're like corrupt at some point, and we keep getting that in Marvel, and I get a little annoyed that we keep doing that, where it's like we get these organizations and then they're immediately unfolding.
Okay, wait. So maybe other Ryan noticed this during a 24-hour marathon, but if you watch all these movies, S.H.I.E.L.D. does not exist. Like S.H.I.E.L.D. is introduced, immediately revealed to be run by Hydra, and then it's gone, and you spend the whole time being like, also, if you watch them all back to back, S.H.I.E.L.D. is the bad guy. S.H.I.E.L.D. is responsible for every bad decision that happens in these movies. And Robert Redford is so cool in Winter Soldier, but he undoes everything. Like he screws up the whole thing. And the TVA is kind of the same deal where it's like we meet it and it's gone. And now like we don't know what it is. So yeah.
Well, it's just a little strange that the United States military has sponsored so many of these movies, because if anything I've learned, men with guns and bureaucracy ruin everything. Just let Wanda fix it or run it or whatever. She might make a mistake, but she's going to have some empathy about that mistake. You know?
So I imagine it actually is because of the funding from the military, where it's never the military. It's always like the group of secret Nazis inside of the military, but the military is
which
fine,
is so
guys.
different than our military, I have to say.
We never brought Nazis over to build rockets for us. That did
Never, not
happen.
even once.
No.
But so like I go back to that, like it just bothers me. I want like them to give us a little bit more room with these organizations before they like completely collapse them.
Yes.
I think it could benefit from like, oh, we have this organization around for like a little bit longer before they completely fold in and like.
You want to see the Monsters Inc. of it all.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yes.
You know what? I go back
this was
to
on my
like,
mind.
I go back to like, why the fuck did they even pitch? Why did they allow Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be a show if they knew they were going to like that first season? S.H.I.E.L.D. was folding. Like,
Box
I don't
them
understand.
in. Yeah.
Well,
What
so
were you gonna say?
you notice this like super hard in the opening of Black Widow, which I don't know if anyone's seen here, but you meet it opens with Thunderbolt Ross hunting Black Widow. And I was watching, I was like, oh, this is cool. Good callback. The time of the Accords. Awesome. What is Thunderbolt Ross now? And who are these people? What is this? Like, who are you? Like, because we've never met Iron Man 3 is the only movie where we meet the president in these movies.
And we see him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. a few times.
Oh, does he come back?
Same president.
I saw the flying car in episode 1 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I was like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not doing this show. But it's so crazy because like you watch these movies and you're like, who is in charge? Like, is there federal funding for these programs? Do taxpayers know about this? Like, what is the deal? And they never explain it. But.
Well, it's like Civil War.
In Iron Man, like the Iron Man movies, and then whatever one comes after Civil War, they get like a little close, but we're not really there. But he's like involved with the government, you know?
Right. Yeah. Like some sort of transnational anti-superhero program, but it's like, where are they getting like, actually, Black Widow is one of the first movies they've done this with where they're like, here's where the money comes from. And I was like, thank you. Because I do not know where the money comes from. Like, who is paying for the tank that goes through the WandaVision?
The helicarriers. I mean, who is paying for the helicarriers?
Who is paying for the helicarrier? Because Stark
wasn't. We're paying for it.
Our taxpayer.
Those are our helicopters.
Yeah. Is S.H.I.E.L.D. using taxpayer money? Because up until Stark builds his tower, it's all funded, I think, by taxpayers, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
But then they privatize it and it's even better. I think it's tough. It's tough in these movies if you do what we did, which was like the 27 hour, whatever it was, marathon, because you're like, okay, so there's the US government, but there's also S.H.I.E.L.D. and then there's Hydra. Then you've got Thanos, you've got Asgard and literal gods. Then you've got now apparently Kang and the TVA. But also while all of this is going on, there are Nexus magics happening. So we've got the ancient one. Like there's a lot of authorities, and I feel like at some point, wouldn't you just call everybody up and be like this happens in real life, right? Like what is it called? We're all the world leaders. All the world leaders. G20, yes, but I'm talking about the one where they like spill owl blood and like
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Bohemian Grove.
Bohemian Grove. Is there a Marvel version of Bohemian Grove where
they're called the Illuminati, and like they are.
I was waiting for someone to say that.
Reed Richards. No, they are. It's Namor, Reed Richards, Doctor Strange, Iron Man,
Professor X.
But we don't see this in the movies. You just see all these authority figures who don't interact and have different kinds of power, be it magical, military, science, space, whatever. And you would think, I don't know. I believe that all of them are talking in our world.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Shi'ar yet. Like most of space in Marvel is controlled by the Shi'ar Empress or whatever. And like, that's going to be so complicated.
I don't think it's that organized.
It isn't. I don't think it is.
No, I don't think on Earth, it's on like our Earth, it's that organized. And I especially don't think once you start throwing gods in there, it's that organized. I mean, like what even is a god, you know, like when it's in a different universe versus like our universe, like is Iron Man a god for Earth in the same way Thor's a god over there? Or is there something that gives Thor godness, you know, like, I don't know. I think it's way more.
It's that ass. It's that ass.
Well, it seems like Asgardians think that they're like the police of the universe, but they're actually just like Australian backpackers. They're like defending reality, but they're just like, I mean, like literally in Loki, they revealed that they would just go play pranks. Like, so like the Asgardian lore is just like unraveling the further we get into this whole thing, which I like that too.
So 2 things about that. I wanted to point out that I did love the Black Widow joke when Yelena is like, do you think the space god needs to take Advil after like going through a fight? And I wish we could have gotten more of what you just referenced, Ryan. Like, I wish the show, bringing it back to the show, I do think the show needed a little bit more room just to let us like soak in this shit. And if we could have shown more pranks, because the way Loki talked about it, they've done that. It wasn't just like a one-off thing. It was like, oh, we did this often. Give me more of that. I loved the like, you know, suddenly now I can't even fucking, what was the name of the guy?
Yeah.
Which guy?
Kang?
The guy that he pretended.
DB Cooper.
DB Cooper. Yeah.
DB Cooper.
Suddenly everyone had heard of it. I had never fucking heard of it. I had to Google that.
You never heard of DB Cooper?
So like, so wait, here's something really interesting. So Netflix has a show called Ragnarok, and it's a show where like Nordic gods like are like reincarnated as teenagers, and it's 2 seasons. And the second season, the main character, who is Thor, is a teenager. His brother slowly becomes Loki, but his brother is a genderqueer goth, and they do Loki as a teenager. And all the stuff you're talking about is really interesting because they do it. So like the Frost Giants are like the rich family in town that's polluting the river. And like Loki can't decide if he's on Team Thor working with Odin in a senior citizen home. And they do like the interplay of the Norse characters. And to go from that to this Loki was crazy, because this one, I mean, the closest we get is the frog in the jar at the end. Like there is no Asgardian fun. And like it seems like a bummer because those characters are hilarious.
I loved seeing Sif. I was gonna say I loved seeing Sif, but by the time you're at the end of Loki, and I get it, he's changing and learning from himself and whatever. But to have a chaos mischief god arguing very hard for bureaucracy and control was a little bit like I'm not seeing. I'm not seeing it. I get you like Sophie, but I'm not seeing why you would prefer a world where you and her don't exist. And if you do exist, you're only in charge of controlling things when both of you like feed off of chaos and mischief. And I don't want to box a character in, but like you can't be the god of something and not really do it. Like if you were the god of like goats and you don't have any goats, what's up, bro? You're not the god of goats.
Yeah.
Kim, you actually had talked a little bit about this because you thought he would be maybe a little bit more the villain, right? Going into the finale.
I had actually tweeted, I forget when or why, but about like going into the last episode, like who was going to be behind all of this. And I thought, we haven't really up until this point met like the villain at all. And I was thinking a lot about like what makes a villain? What makes a villain a villain? Like is the god of mischief, is he a villain, right? Or is he just the god of mischief and that's what we expect of him? So I was wondering if our big bad was going to be, I called it a big neutral or a big good instead of a big bad. So like Loki is like the bad guy in this situation. Like, and they're like, we saw you coming from a mile away because you're the bad guy, you're the villain. And that's like the hole you're going to fall into. It's like always the trope you're going to be. So instead we were going to get, and okay. And so I was like, then it's going to be like Captain America sitting there, like somebody like, I mean, yeah, somebody like that. Obviously not Captain America, beyond what I mean.
It's Kat Dennings, the actress.
Right? Oh, that would be I would have loved that. I would have said 12 more seasons.
I'm now curious as to what Captain America 4 will be. Just because like out of all the shows, that's the one that's the most, I guess, grounded in a way.
Yeah, like straight down. Yeah.
I mean, not shows, but like movies or what that are coming up. But anyway, like
my personal theory.
Sam.
My personal theory is it's Val, I think, is going to be like, maybe that's what they're doing.
I think so. Yeah. But I'm also like, I don't care. They're doing magic shit in space over here. I don't care about what's going on down here.
Yeah.
Like, am I supposed to deal with this?
I feel bad for Sam because I'm like, I love your journey. I love what's happening with you, but also like, God, I want to go back to space. Like, I do not care.
And also, some of these characters are more dynamic people than others. Like, I would rather watch B-15 walk around and do paperwork than I would rather watch like Sam do anything. And
that's the fault of that show, though. They should have done a better job of making Sam a little bit more dynamic than he was. But that's a whole nother podcast.
I didn't watch the show, and I'm still nodding because I can imagine.
Steph, I feel like that was every episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier was us being like, I wish they would just.
Yeah.
Like, what are y'all doing?
But I have a question.
Something, I don't know.
Kind of based on our question earlier, I have a question that our audience asked. But I do feel like we did get a big neutral. Like, dude was like, I am saving you all from me.
No, yeah.
And all these other me's are way worse. And like that decision, like, is the TVA good or bad? I mean, who knows? I can't answer that. Nobody can answer that.
Yeah.
I think they're good. No, I have no idea.
Well, I think
there's just no way to tell.
I think the one good thing, going back to what I said that bothers me, is that they collapse these organizations. The TVA isn't technically collapsed, right? It's in the process of like
depends on which verse you're in, right?
Yeah, because now we have multiple TVAs most likely.
And I just that really fucking pissed me off. That kicker of them being like, and who are you? I was like,
so okay, wait. It's either
really?
we have multiple
TVA.
So either we have multiple TVAs or they have erased all of the character development of Mobius, and I would rather have multiple TVAs. I need Mobius Prime somewhere. Like
That's
I really care about that character.
I think ultimately it's whatever. My guess was that whatever happens within that little like citadel is removed from time and space, and so now there's a lot of different versions of the TVA. There's a lot of different versions of different universes. It's not centralized, nothing sacred, except for Loki and Sylvie, who were in the citadel and have sort of a remove. You know what I mean?
And
they
maybe
have a level of remove. Oh yeah, true.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. Like whatever Miss Minutes sent her, and then when she left, does that mean that she also still has her memories intact?
Oh, wait, I took it to be totally different. That Mobius does remember. We just we're not with him. Like
like Loki's at another.
Everyone who's gone through this, they didn't get their, because there'd be no reason for their memories to wipe, because we've learned from Endgame that it's just like the character arc, right? So
right.
Loki got dropped in the wrong place. That's how I interpreted it.
Right. No. I think you're totally right though, because the statues are also different. Because I'm like, how is why set up Hunter B-15 waking folks up and teaming up with Mobius if you're just going to restart? Because that's happy. Like, okay, I know you're getting season 2, but don't do this
I
shit.
think what you just said is where we're going, where B-15s are the answer to Kangs. You know, the answer to Kang is not let's all get all the superheroes together and punch him really hard. It's everybody has to keep this dude in check. Like we all have to work together and agree that we live in a society. But maybe that's where we're going to it's going to take all the Spider-Mans to keep the bad Spider-Mans in check. It's going to take all the B-15s to keep the bad B-15s or the Kangs in check. And maybe the movies will be about organizing those groups of people, which will give us a fun taste in every movie of being like, there's a lady Iron Man. You know, like you get the fun of that for the audience.
Well, it's funny going back to that real quick, Ryan Broderick, something you said earlier about Miles Morales. Now I'm thinking shit, could this be the intro of him getting we could have, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man we see his final Spider-Man fight in whatever. And that multiverse version of him is him dying. And the younger Spider-Man is Miles Morales. I mean, we should even do that with Andrew Garfield, right? Because he probably isn't that much younger than me. And he could be his character, his Spider-Man died. And, this teen took over. And that could be a way to bring that in. But I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You're about to say something else.
Oh, no. The only thing I was going to say is if you're curious in how the Kangs might work, you should totally check out the comic Invincible. They have a character who's a riff on this, the Council of Reeds, Angstrom Levy, and they do the whole thing really compressed. And I think they do it, I'm hoping it's similar, because the way they do it, I think keeps it focused and grounded. Whereas if I remember the comics, the Council of Reeds, the Kangs, all that stuff gets really wacky. But Angstrom Levy is such a fun riff on it, where he's just a petty asshole who can travel between multiverses.
Well, I feel like comics have that issue. And this is no dig at comics, as you all know, I love comics. So many writers put there's so many different hands into every story that sometimes it is woo, this is convoluted. I've been reading all of this and I still couldn't tell you fully what the arc here was, or what the full, I think of a character like Psylocke. It is very hard to describe Psylocke's background and I can't imagine an elevator pitch for Psylocke, right?
Especially now, because
yes,
I don't know if you've read the Hickman run, but I don't even know what she is anymore.
Two different people.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that just happens in comics. These characters have been around for none of them are aging, so that just happens. But I haven't read Invincible, but I did really like the cartoon. Stephanie,
I feel bad for the cartoon.
The comic is worth your time.
Yeah, the comic is great, but I feel bad for the Amazon show, because they're clearly building to Angstrom Levy, and the fact that Kang is now out in the MCU. I watched it. I was like, oh, I feel bad for Kirkman. That sucks.
I was gonna say Invincible. You've got now we've got Kang, Rick from Rick and Morty. I mean, it's gonna be tough to tell entirely original stories, but the fun thing is they've given themselves so many tools to play with that if someone does scoop their story, they can pivot it very slightly and still make it very, very entertaining.
And the new season of Rick and Morty, episode 2, they deal with this. just like time, like multiple like duplicates. Is it really duplicates or whatever? They handle that. So everyone's fucking with time and extra people, and I would like it to stop.
Remember when we were all like, Westworld's getting a little complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, in Rick and Morty, isn't it season 1 when they go back in time where like they get killed? They go to like a different universe, like everyone turns into a bug.
Yeah.
And then they go to the universe where Rick and Morty died because of an experiment, and they bury their bodies in the backyard.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is in the Rick and Morty fandom, they're trying to track who is the original whatever, and then they have the replacement family, and they're like, but those are the prime versions, and they're trying to track like who were they duplicates, and they're trying to put it all together. I'm like, guys, do this for the Kang stuff because Marvel will be doing this. Rick and Morty, great show, still a cartoon. You don't need to worry if this is the real Summer or not. Yeah, we're not doing that.
Right, because then there's that episode where he like drops the dad off and they mix up the tickets.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I remember I read the like longest, I feel like Ryan Broderick probably freaking tweeted it. I have like the longest like Reddit thread on like, this is like, you can tell they exchanged the dads because of, and like that makes it the wrong ticket.
But the message of that episode in the first season is that it doesn't matter. Just watch TV, enjoy your life.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You can't go back and trace back every single detail. And yet the urge exists and persists.
Kim, have you watched Rick and Morty? I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Huh.
I remember watching, I think it was that episode at your house, and you were like explaining to me, you're like, no, you'll like this. Like, I know it because I don't love like gross looking cartoons. And you
not a Ren and Stimpy fan.
Yeah, no, that like line of like animation, I just don't like the way it looks. And there's other types of, I'm really picky about cartoons. Like SpongeBob even, I just like, I can't look past the end, and it's just a personal preference. Like I know it's stupid, but yeah, no, I did enjoy it, and I think I probably watched it not because all my friends were like Pickle Rick all the time, because you, Ian, were like, no, you'll like this. This is smart and good.
Pickle Rick, funniest shit I've ever seen. Turned into a pickle. Wait, before we have to have the conversation before we finish. We have to have it.
What is it?
Yes.
Would you make out with your variant?
100 fucking percent. What is the point of meeting myself if not to fuck each other? Like it would be the culmination of a lifetime of masturbating. Are you kidding?
I like the power differences between variants more so than clones, because the clone doesn't really have a life. They're still technically, I mean, depending on what happens, like they're technically like only alive for a few days, whereas a variant, they have a whole story. There's the power that there is equal to me. I like that. Unless it's a cooler, more successful variant, and then I wouldn't want to do that. Like I'd want to be the more successful, cooler variant.
I would want to meet cool variants because I want fucking tips. Like if you know how to be hot with this, give me some tips. I would love
Knowing
to know.
me, I know that I would be mean to my weaker variants. So I want to make sure that I'm the stronger variant. Like that's my concern.
Yeah, you're in a fuck death murder situation. Got it. Okay.
Oh,
Ryan, I feel like you were when I interned at BuzzFeed. I was very intimidated by everyone, and Ryan, you were like so nice and welcoming. Are you kidding me?
No, that was my smokescreen. I was manipulating you to the same way I would my variant. Okay, I'm glad we're all in agreement though that we would all kiss our variants. That's great.
100%.
I don't know. I'm pleading the fifth. I have no idea. I literally don't know if I would like her, him, or them enough.
I will say
like, ooh.
I might
would
work my own
if
nerves.
I did like. Sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
I think I agree with Stephanie. I would, but I would have to like them enough.
See, I could hate fuck myself. I hate fuck myself all the time.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hate fuck myself 2 hours after we wrap this up.
That's how
My
I feel when I
husband's
eat an
away.
entire Domino's pizza in one sitting. That's the same feeling I
Yes.
have when I hate fuck
Now,
my
I could
variant.
stress eat with
100%.
my variant. We would have an amazing time at Cheesecake Factory. We would go there.
Also, very weird that they didn't give each other back massages at some point, because that is the ultimate. You know what to do.
You would know exactly.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, I want everyone in the
they were
comments.
doing it all wrong.
I want everyone in the comments to say if they would make out with their variant. I worry though, because I am an anxious person as it is. Like, would variant me, we just be too fucking anxious and be like, ooh, are they gonna kiss me first? Ooh, like what's going on? And then like just like, implode with fucking frustration of like anxiety.
Well, that was the read I got on the two of them. Because I was like, will they or won't they? Is this love or is this like sister, brother? Like up until that kiss, like I did not know.
Okay, yes. Also, I want everyone, How do we feel about the kiss? Because I hated it. I hands down fucking hated it.
I
I literally rolled my
cheered.
eyes.
I cheered. I was like, finally, this should have happened 2 episodes ago.
I think
I
I
was
went
like-
like this.
I was like, both of your characters are coded as British, so that's why it took so long. But like, this should have happened episodes ago.
I was just like, they're both so hot. This is fine. I'm
I
not going
thought
to think about it too much.
The sexual chemistry was undeniable. It was like I said, it was palpable. You could feel it to the screen. It was,
I just
it was
wasn't.
unbelievable.
I just didn't know, and I wanted to know sooner. And I know they told me a million times in a million different ways, but like sharing a blanket is not kissing.
No.
Yeah, you and
No,
I
you
would share a
share
blanket.
Yeah,
like-
exactly. I don't know.
It was just funny because I like the look. I don't like the whole time, like just reading Sylvia, I'm like, she is not actually into him in the same way that he is into her. So I'm like, this is probably going to end badly, and it did. And all I can think of is this Carl Thomas song called "I Wish" that came out in the early 2000s, where he talked about a woman that he wished he never met because she broke his heart. Because she wouldn't leave her husband and kids. So anyway, like that, Loki had his "I wish" moment. And I was like, oh, that's what you get for falling in love with yourself. That's why you're supposed to hate yourself.
But also
And-
never date anybody who doesn't know themselves and hasn't had like a full, rich personal
Yeah.
life. Like that's just you're setting yourself up for disaster. She doesn't know if she doesn't know what she wants to do for a living.
She didn't have a
She's
childhood.
over.
Yeah, she's been on the run since she was like arguably
Yeah.
what, like 8? Like
She's practically feral. Like that's like her
Yeah,
deal.
pretty much.
But
I
there's
feel
a fun to that for the sex stuff. I'm just mean dating afterwards.
I did really love the score, like
Yes.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the score. Yeah.
And even the soundtrack, like the score stuff was great, and the moments they picked to like do like the Loki theme and the way that
Yes.
built throughout the show. Oh my god, like that's like stuff that my score dreams are made of. But even in the soundtrack too, like I've been like listening to it every once in a while, like not the score, and then also like the songs that they played, etc. Like I don't know, like I think they did a really good job musically with the show.
I loved the visual art design language. Like I loved that the TVA very much feels like a bureaucracy that you've interacted with. If it was
Those
overly
colors.
funded. Yeah. Like when Ryder Ripps redid the CAA, kind of like that. And I loved Miss Minutes, and I loved even just like how the universe looked. Like there was a consistency to the visual language and yet a variety of things that made them feel completely different and like alien. And that is a lot harder to nail, especially like the timekeepers making them look intimidating and not obviously fake. But when you find out that they're fake, oh yeah, well definitely those were fake. Like it's a tough thing to nail, and I think they did as good a job with it as any team could have done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
I go back that I like the Loki theme for when they had the Loki title, but I like the Loki score that they had, the like sweeping evil score like that they played when he jumps through the porthole, when he's like thinking of jumping through the portal, but then he does. And like, yeah, the music was just fucking great for this series.
Yeah.
I know some people were ragging on the like colors, but I did like the colors too.
Oh, they were
Like,
perfect for what
Yeah.
they were there for.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't
It-
love like that puke TVA color. Like I'm not gonna paint my bedroom wall that color, but that's what the TVA should be colored, like
yeah.
Yeah. All of the locations felt like they felt distinct in a way that I think is very important for Marvel movies to get right. And they rarely do. And this felt like Guardians, where like everything felt very specific.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I'm gonna close out. I guess we already said how we felt about the series. What was like one of your favorite moments, Ryan Houlihan?
Crocodile Loki, hands down. There's not even up for discussion. I like seeing Polybius in the background of one scene. Great. I wrote a wonderful piece about it on inputmag.com. I love Polybius, but Croc Loki, I mean, this guy needs his own book. He needs his own film franchise. I need merch. I want to know what he's up to. I want him to date Captain Marvel. I'm going to throw it out there. I think that would be good. But otherwise, I thought every episode had a great moment, but that Crocodile Loki was my jam. So
Fair. Stephanie.
I'm torn. Pompeii, just because like we know what's gonna happen. I'm like, okay, it's time. It's exploded. Like, get out of there. And then also just the time on Lamenters leading up to those 10 minutes leading up to everything literally going to crap. And that the way that Sylvie walks away after the ship explodes, it's very, I told you we weren't gonna fucking make it, and you made me think that we were, and now look, now we're just gonna die. I hope you're happy.
I feel like that is kind of your vibe, Stephanie.
Yes, it absolutely is.
I hope you're thinking about what you did. I'll be over here.
Yeah, like, look, it happened. I said so. Ryan Broderick.
I think it was classic Loki. It was classic Loki versus the smoke monster. We haven't talked about Richard E. Grant yet. And like that dude went 110% in a way that was just, he didn't need to. He didn't need to go that hard. And he did. And it made me kind of sad in a beautiful way. And it was perfect.
He
Perfect
showed
moment.
the girls what they should have did.
Yeah, like, and he seems like he's really into the role. Like he's talking a lot about it on social media and sharing fan art. And like that to me is just really special.
There is something to be said for like, I feel like there's two different kinds of like these older actors that come in. Either they're like, ugh, this is fucking stupid. It's another job, but it's a paycheck. Or they're like, this is fucking cool. I'm in a superhero thing. I've never done this before. And he's definitely that. Like
always take the same opinion that Tilda Swinton took. Just follow her lead. She's right.
Kim.
I do want to add, I really like that classic Loki moment. It was very emotional. But yeah, the whole train scene leading up to when they're on Lamentis, I think definitely when he sings that song, my daughter loves that song, which I mentioned that was also the episode I'm on. I feel like I'm biased because I talked about that episode more than others. So I do want to say also that like short period of time at the end of episode 4 or 5, where like a bunch of people get killed who I wasn't expecting and they didn't actually get killed. A bunch of people get
pruned.
Like, pruned. A bunch of people are pruned. I was so surprised every time that I just thought that was a good series of surprises.
That's fair. Yeah. I think I don't know. Now you've all like given me different choices.
I thought you were gonna say the time loop with Sif.
Yeah.
I mean I did like that. But I think I always appreciate a drunk scene in a show where we don't normally get characters drunk. So I did really love drunk Loki singing and just being like a buffoon. I
always forget that you're a fan of Beer Bad.
Hands up, I am. I think it's a good episode. Sarah Michelle Gellar fucking committed to being a drunk cave person. I just like, Parks and Rec, the episode where they're all drunk. That's like my favorite episode. I just love getting to see the characters have fun. But again, I like Crocodile Loki. He was great. My wish would have been that we spent more time with those Loki variants. I was so surprised that President Loki was like only in it for.
So you know what I thought? For whatever reason, like I made this story up in mind from the promo that Loki somehow ended up on some world in order to get off the world or do something. He had to like campaign. It was like a really short campaign, but he had to campaign to like, I don't know, like get the people's trust, and then that's how they solve some other thing. But that's not at all what happened. Because
he was in every trailer. I thought he was going to be a big part, right?
Yeah.
It also just seemed very like, okay, want a bad president? We'll give you our version of a bad president. And I was like, oh, we're going to have some commentary. And instead they just, it was commentary, but they ate him alive. So,
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for doing this. And thank you all for watching. This has been our Loki coverage and we'll see y'all later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.